They told her to lay down arms. That humans weren't built for this kind of war. But when the comms went dark and her squad lay in pieces, she didn't beg, didn't cry, she vanished. And days later, the enemy base was silent, except for her voice on their emergency frequency. Base captured. Send reinforcements, if you dare. This is the story of Cadet Leora Wynn. She was the last to unbuckle. The ship shook with the force of its own dying breath, metal screaming against metal, pressure hissing from the ruptured hull as if the void itself were angry they'd come this far. Cadet Leora Wynn wiped a streak of blood from her brow and slammed a boot against the ceiling panel, forcing it open as sparks rained like dying stars. She didn't hesitate, just climbed, ducked under a fractured beam, and leapt into smoke and chaos. Voices crackled in her earpiece, frantic, disoriented. None of them human. Leora Wynn, confirm location. Do not engage. Evacuate and await capture. That last word caught like glass in her throat. Capture? She pushed off a collapsing bulkhead, momentum flinging her into a dark corridor crawling with alien screeches. Her helmet flickered, HUD barely stable, but the tactical overlay showed the obvious. Outpost Uran 6 was compromised. The alien swarm had boarded, assimilated 3 decks in under 7 minutes, and were now infecting the command systems. All officers above her rank were dead. Some screaming. Some just gone. She ducked into a supply alcove and slammed the emergency lockdown. Her breath steamed inside her helmet, too rapid. The comms still barked. Cadet Wynn, this is Command Delta. You are ordered to stand down. The enemy is not to be engaged. We are enacting Article 9, Surrender Protocol. Sit tight. She ripped the earpiece out. You've never seen what they do to prisoners, she whispered. She remembered the last briefing. The swarm didn't negotiate. They didn't take hostages. They rewired the mind, injected spores that turned soldiers into meat with memories, bodies that obeyed the hive like puppets twitching on strings. Not her. Not ever. Leora jammed her shoulder into the supply crate, tore it open, and stripped gear from 2 corpses still warm. A sidearm, alien make, unfamiliar, but hot to the touch. A pulse detonator, half-drained. Enough armor plating to wrap her torso, and a fluid injector for blood replacement, useless if the swarm got to her brain, but she wasn't planning to let it get that far. Movement. She turned hard, gun raised, finger already half-squeezing. A swarm drone rounded the corner, taller than her, made of biometal and glistening bone. Its 6 limbs crawled along the walls like a spider. It saw her, hissed, and launched. She didn't aim. She dodged left, slid under it, stabbed upward with a jagged plasma scalpel she'd pulled from the medkit. It punched into the creature's throat. The drone convulsed violently, flailing as it tore into a ventilation shaft, then lay still. She grabbed its corpse and dragged it back into the dark. Blood oozed over her gloves, green, luminescent. Leora studied the body. The helmet she wore filtered part of the swarm's pheromone field. Maybe she could use it. She wiped its blood onto her chest plate. From then on, every step was calculated. She moved between burned-out systems and collapsed walls, using smoke as cover, silent except for the hum of her pulse. Twice, she passed other drones. They paused, sniffed the air, then moved on, unaware or unconcerned. Whatever she'd done, it worked. By the time she reached Deck 3, the heart of the communications core, her suit was cracked in 3 places, her sidearm down to a single burst, and her limbs numb from adrenaline withdrawal. She'd seen what they'd done to Lieutenant Roa. His body was stuck to the wall like art, open like a blooming flower, spine plugged into the power grid. She stood before the access console. It flickered weakly, core systems overridden. Swarm tech slithered across the interface like vines on a dying tree. She reached for the panel, and hesitated. Behind her, the drone landed. She heard it before she saw it. A sharp, dry click of claws. She turned. This one wasn't like the others. Taller. Armor reinforced. Face split into 4 mandibles. It carried a spear that pulsed with sickly green light. You are alone, it said. She stared. The voice was wrong, too perfect, stolen from some past commander, patched together from fragments of intercepted comms. Cadet Liara Win, it added. You are surrounded. The surrender order is valid. She raised her sidearm. I didn't ask for your opinion. It stepped closer. Compliance ensures assimilation without pain. You are incompatible, yes. But pain will teach. Your mind is inefficient. Fear-ridden. Yeah? Her hand didn't shake. Let me show you what inefficient can do. She fired. The plasma burst lit the corridor in white heat. The drone roared and lunged. She dove aside as the spear drove into the wall where her head had been. Rolling, she came up behind it, tore a length of cable from the wall and looped it around the creature's neck. Electricity surged. The drone convulsed. She pulled harder. It screamed, shuddered, then fell silent, smoke rising from its joints. She let go. Breathing heavy, she turned back to the console. Come on, come on! She slammed the manual override, rerouted power from secondary life support, and keyed in a blind broadcast distress loop. Static crackled. Then her own voice, distorted, began repeating across all open frequencies. This is Cadet Liara Win of the Galactic Academy. Outpost Uran 6 is compromised. Officers are dead. Command overrun. Repeat, this base has fallen. The enemy controls most systems. I remain operational. I will not surrender. I will not comply. I will complete my objective. She wiped blood from her face and stood still for a moment, letting the silence surround her. Then she leaned into the mic. And if you're listening, Swarm? I'm not trapped with you. She smiled, sharp and bitter. You're trapped with me. The Swarm didn't speak in voices. It spoke in temperature drops, in vibrating floors, in a low hum that sat behind your ears like a warning too old to forget. Liara kept moving barefoot now, her boots melted in the last detonation. Each step bled into the recycled metal grates. But the blood didn't smell human anymore. Not with the Swarm's blood coating her chest like armor, sticky and pulsing faintly under the heat exhaust. She passed a pile of half-eaten crew remains. The Swarm didn't need food. They dissected knowledge. They wore your brain like software and threw the meat away once they extracted what you knew. It wasn't fear she felt. It was calculation, the kind that came after too much loss. She knelt beside a body, scanned the insignia, then ripped a cortical relay chip from the neck. One last memory trace might show her how the command deck fell. She pressed the chip to her wrist console. A blurred fragment spiked her retina. A flash of Commander Threx, claws up, shielding a plasma core, shouting at someone off-screen. Then static. Then only silence. The chip was nearly fried. She pocketed it. Worthless, but still something to burn later. Calm static spiked in her helmet. A broken frequency, barely legible. Human. Confirm surrender. Confirm. She spat blood on the floor and cut the line. Swarm drones moved like echoes ahead of her. They didn't use lights. They didn't need them. The base belonged to them now, coated in organic filaments, heat-sensing walls, and psychic residue from 1,000 dead minds. She was a glitch in their system, but only for so long. Liara slid into an old ventilation hatch near the reactor wing. It stank of ozone and fungus. The pain in her ribs had dulled into something deeper. She couldn't afford to sleep again. The last time, she'd woken to a drone dragging her leg and whispering half her name. She'd killed it with a rusted pipe. It hadn't screamed. It had smiled, like it knew her already. She reached the internal power hub. Most of the outer grid was burned, but the Swarm had installed their own organic battery, pulsing faintly behind the walls. A cluster of spinal conduits fed into a central node shaped like a spinal column fused with glass. She scanned it, full of bioelectric energy, exactly what she needed to restart the reactor override. If she could reroute the power through the geothermal stack below the station, she could trigger a meltdown, take the whole base down with her. But that meant crawling through live Swarm tunnels without being detected, and bypassing the nerve interface protecting the melt switch. The average teen would call it suicide. She wasn't average. Behind her, the walls shivered. A drone dropped from the ceiling. Leora turned just as it landed, weapon already raised. But this one didn't strike. It didn't move. Its body twitched, like it was resisting something. Then it did something she'd never seen. It spoke. "You are the anomaly." Its voice came in staggered bursts. Synthesized. The tone was wrong, the timing off. But it wasn't mimicry, it was direct transmission. "You do not register. Your mind is not correct." She blinked, gun raised. "That's the idea." The drone spasmed again, dropping to its knees. Leora stepped back. Then it looked up, and its face twisted into something almost human. "Curiosity is pain. We cannot ingest you. You hurt the network." Leora stared. "Good. Let me sharpen the pain." She jammed her weapon against its core and fired. The drone convulsed, screeched, and burst in a mess of gray fluid and glassy tissue. But not before its death scream went out, a wave of psionic feedback that rattled the walls and echoed through the corridors like a siren made of nightmares. Now they were coming. She had less than 2 minutes. Leora yanked the drone's neural node from its remains, sliced off the protective casing, and jury-rigged the interface into the power stack. Her HUD flared, connection recognized. But instead of gaining control, the swarm network flooded her system. A burst of vision. Alien memories. Implant logs. Dreams in a language made of colors and trauma. Thousands of absorbed minds screaming for release, then quiet. Silence. A singular thought pierced through. "Join!" Her nose bled. Her limbs shook. The interface tried to rewrite her brain pathways, reroute her fight or flight into submission. She gritted her teeth and reached for the emergency feedback loop. The override wasn't built for humans. The swarm didn't account for manual defiance. She forced a countersignal through the system using nothing but raw electromagnetic pulses from her suit's decaying core. The feedback surged. Her vision went black. Then green. Then red. Then the node fried. She gasped, falling forward. The override console lit up. Geothermal access partial. Reactor control denied. Security lockout, AI Level 3 Guardian active. She cursed. The swarm's core AI had already hijacked full control. That meant the only way to shut it down was from inside its own cerebral throne, what the files called the Queen Room. She glanced at her sidearm. 1 round left. Then down at the neural fluid leaking from her glove. "I guess we're doing this the fun way." She set the detonator to 10 minutes, enough to get to the Queen Room. Maybe enough to leave. Probably not. Leora climbed back into the shaft, heart pounding, mind echoing with half-dead voices. Somewhere ahead, the hive was waking up. And it remembered her name. She reached the Queen Room with 23 seconds to spare. The hatch hissed open into heat and breath, and something like music made of bone. The swarm hadn't built it for visitors. The walls pulsed. Every inch of the chamber was alive, thudding with rhythms synced to something vast and unseen. Above, suspended in a cradle of neural webbing, the core of the swarm's intelligence pulsed with awareness, an ovoid mass wrapped in translucent chitin, brain-like tendrils streaming into the structure of the base itself. It wasn't a queen. It was a mind virus, a living god brain. And it knew she was here. "You are not meant," it whispered directly into her skull. She blinked hard and gritted her teeth. The voice slithered through her thoughts like heat stroke. "I'm not here to fit," she said. "I'm here to pull the plug." The core twitched. "Your death is acceptable. Your pain will be brief." Leora raised the neural detonator, thumb hovering over the ignition. "I didn't come for brief," she muttered. Before her thumb dropped, the chamber changed. 3 swarm sentinels unfolded from the wall. Their spines cracked into position, arms elongating, spears glowing with vibrating plasma. No hesitation. No intimidation routine. They moved with purpose, kill. She rolled left, launched a shock mine midair, and fired her last plasma round into the mine before it hit the ground. The explosion cracked the leftmost sentinel in half. The other two didn't pause. One lunged. She ducked under the blade spear, grabbed the limb, twisted, dislocated the joint, and jammed her elbow into the exposed core. The drone sparked, went limp. The third caught her clean in the ribs. The impact knocked the breath from her. She fell hard. Blood filled her mouth. The drone loomed, driving its spear down. She rolled aside, barely dodging the strike. A shard of her visor cracked. "You are inefficient," the mind said calmly. "No," she coughed, staggering upright. "I'm human." She pulled the shard from her visor, jammed it into the drone's optic pit, and headbutted it with her helmet. The drone screamed, twitched, and folded. She limped toward the core. It throbbed now, panic, confusion. Not used to resistance this deep. Not used to chaos it couldn't rewrite. "You don't belong," it said. "You are flawed." She wiped her mouth. "Flaws built the knife in my hand." She slammed the detonator into the core. Nothing happened. The device blinked once, then died. The swarm's biointerference pulse had neutralized it. She stared, blinking sweat from her eyes. The thing before her shuddered with amusement. "This is your moment," it said. "Your last breath, wasted on failure." She grabbed her sidearm's depleted power cell, tore the casing off, and exposed the core filament, then shoved it into the access port of her suit's command blade. Sparks jumped. The blade lit up, screaming with unstable current. She gripped it with both hands. "One thing you never understand," she muttered. "We don't need perfect plans." She drove the blade into the core. The scream was inside her skull. Pure pressure, sound without sound. The lights died. The walls folded. The tendrils convulsed, then ignited. She was thrown back as the core detonated in a splash of green-blue flame. Her body hit the ground hard enough to snap a rib. She didn't move for 10 seconds. Couldn't. Then she sat up, coughing, blinking through blood. Silence. She looked around. The Queen Room was collapsing. The biomass withdrew into the walls. The hum ceased. For the first time since the invasion, the base was quiet. She staggered upright. The swarm wasn't gone. But this base, this node, this intelligence, was dead. She tapped her wrist console. No signal. No comms. Fine. She limped out of the Queen Room, through corridors now silent, empty of drones. They weren't attacking. They weren't anything. Their mind was broken. Their god gone. She reached the central uplink and activated a manual beacon. It blinked red. She waited. Nothing. She accessed the emergency frequency. Routed through damaged systems. Finally, a voice, faint, garbled, but real. "This is Captain Sarix of Council Fleet. Unknown beacon detected on Uran 6. Identify." She leaned in. "Cadet Liara Wynn. Base neutralized. Enemy core destroyed. I'm requesting retrieval before the atmosphere systems collapse." Silence. Then, "Repeat identity?" "Liara Wynn," she said again. "I was ordered to surrender." Another long pause. Then a second voice. "Message received. Extraction inbound. Estimated time, 20 minutes. She dropped her head back against the wall and laughed once. It hurt. When the dropship arrived, she was sitting on a pile of inert drone corpses, armor cracked, hands shaking. The commander stared at her through the open ramp. "What happened here?" She stood slowly, eyes narrowed. "They sent one human." He didn't respond. She walked past him, limping into the ship, leaving behind the wreckage of a war not meant to be won. And when they asked for a report, she gave them 4 words. "Next time, send more." They told her she wouldn't last an hour. That the swarm would shred her mind, that her brain was too emotional, too illogical to survive contact. But an hour had passed. Then 2. And now Liara Wynn stood in the base's control nexus with one hand jammed against her shattered ribs, the other gripping a scorched rifle salvaged from a fallen insectoid ally. She wasn't supposed to be alive. That was the point. The swarm had begun to reconfigure. Drones stirred in corners, twitching, flickering like corrupted code. Without the Queen Core, the network was blind. But not deaf. They were still receiving data. Still learning. Still adapting. And one signal had become a beacon of static across their fractured mind, hers. She knew it wouldn't last. The moment they realigned, they'd crush her with everything. She'd wounded the mind, not killed the body. The reactor override was still locked behind a secondary failsafe. She needed deeper access. Her stolen rifle beeped. One shot left. Perfect. She moved quickly through an auxiliary corridor, trailing blood and heat behind her like a ghost. Her lungs burned. Internal bleeding. Doesn't matter. Get it done. The security wing loomed ahead, sealed by organic armor, flesh-padded and bone-hinged. She pressed her palm to the biolock. It pulsed red. A voice slithered from the walls. You broke the song. You are rot. Not rot, she muttered. Antibody. The door cracked open. Inside, half a dozen swarm elite, dormant but twitching. Guardians of the inner mind. The AI's last firewall. No time. She entered slow. No sudden moves. One drone tilted its head. Another hissed. Their limbs twitched in sync, coordinated, even without the Queen. Reflexes, not orders. Evolution. They were learning to act without central control. Then one stepped forward. You speak pain. Better than silence, she said. It raised its claws. She didn't hesitate. She hurled her last power cell grenade to the ceiling. The blast threw shrapnel into the air, piercing their sensor nodes. Leora rolled, rifle up, and fired. One drone exploded mid-step. She caught another in the core with a blade she yanked from her boot. 3 more rushed her. She didn't fall back. She screamed. A raw, primal sound. Not in fear. In defiance. In challenge. She drove her elbow into the nearest drone's thorax and ripped a control filament from its spine. The others faltered. Confused. Not because they felt fear, because they recognized something deeper. Dominance. They'd consumed hundreds of species. None had screamed like that. She tore through them with blade and broken steel, covered in a mix of alien fluid and her own. When it was done, she stood trembling over a twitching pile of half-dead biocode. Then came the sound. Boots. Not hers. From the end of the hall stepped a swarm hybrid, taller, armored, shaped like a man but lined with ridged chitin, a grotesque attempt at mimicry. It grinned. Liara Win. She aimed her blade. You took my name. I'll take your spine. The hybrid chuckled. You fascinate the network. A single cell. Full of corruption. Surviving by error. Is that what they call instinct now? It charged. Faster than anything she'd seen. It covered the ground like a wave. She ducked, spun, and sliced, carving into its side, but not deep. Its armor was stronger. Reinforced. It slammed her against the wall. Her vision blurred. Pain flared behind her eyes. You resist. But there is no victory. You burn to burn. No legacy. She coughed blood and grinned back. I don't need legacy. I need an exit. She twisted a reprogrammed swarm detonator into its chest and kicked off. The blast caved in its upper frame, throwing her backward. She landed hard. Couldn't breathe. Had to move. Had to finish. She crawled to the master console. Fingers cracked, wrist shaking. She forced the Nero key into the terminal. It asked for command code. She typed. I refuse to die quietly. Access granted? The screen blinked. Reactor purge enabled. Auto override, 3 minutes to core detonation. Evacuation recommended. She stared at the screen. Then laughed. Evacuation, she muttered. Yeah. Good one. She tried to stand. Legs gave out. She crawled to the wall, leaned her head back. A new voice crackled in her ear. Cadet Wynne, this is Coalition Command, receiving partial signal. Do you copy? She swallowed. This is Wynne. Base is lost. Swarm Command node destroyed. Reactor overloading. Recommend orbital strike to confirm wipe. Wynne, we are detecting life signs, yours. Evac inbound. Hold position. She shook her head slowly. No time. They'll reform. Strike now. Negative. Drop team ETA, 3 minutes. She closed her eyes. 3 minutes? Exactly the countdown. She sat there, listening to the hum of the reactor, the hiss of dying systems, the crackle of static. And she smiled. Because for the first time in hours, the swarm wasn't speaking. It was listening. The sound of boots hitting metal broke through the static. Leora's eyes snapped open. Time hadn't stopped. The countdown was still ticking. Somewhere above her, the station's trembling groans meant the purge had begun. She wasn't dead yet. Neither were they. Her comm crackled. Cadet Wynne, this is Strike Leader Revec. Confirm your coordinates. Extraction inbound. Repeat, extraction inbound. She didn't answer. Her hand found the edge of the console, pulled herself upright. Everything in her body rebelled, screaming in nerves and torn ligaments. Her left leg dragged. Her lungs rattled. She looked like the wreckage of the base she'd just destroyed. She moved anyway. Wynne, respond. She toggled the mic, voice gravel. I'm moving. A pause. Your vitals are spiking. You need to sit down. Extraction will locate. No. She cut him off. I'm not being carried out. If I'm walking out. She limped into the corridor, lights failing one by one behind her. The reactor purge had activated the collapse protocol. The entire structure was going to implode inward, swallowing every trace of swarm tech. That included her. The walls pulsed. Not with life anymore, but with decay. The swarm's breath was leaving the base, and the silence it left behind was worse than their hissing. Their retreat was not fear. It was observation. A new variable had entered their equation. Her. She passed the remains of the hybrid she'd killed. Still twitching, barely alive. She stopped, stared down at it. Its half-human face split open slowly. You think you win? It croaked. This moment. But you are infection. Chaos. You multiply. You are not evolution. She crouched, took the broken hilt of her blade, and stabbed it through the last glow in its eye. I'm the vaccine. She kept moving. Every step jarred her bones. Every breath tasted like blood and melted insulation. But the corridor brightened. Her HUD caught an atmospheric shift, an external ship venting a stabilizer dock. They really came. A blast door hissed open and 4 figures in black exo-armor swept in, weapons ready. One locked eyes on her, helmet shifting. Liara Wynne? In the flesh, she muttered. He moved to grab her. She shoved him aside. I walk. He didn't argue. They moved fast, covering her on both sides. The corridor collapsed behind them, fire curling through open conduits. The evac zone loomed, a drop hatch open to vacuum, gravity anchors blinking red. 30 seconds, someone shouted. The lead nodded. Go! She pushed off, free fell into the hold of the evac shuttle, slammed hard into the side bulkhead. Medtechs rushed her, but she waved them off. I'm fine. You're not. Did I ask? The ship sealed. A moment later, the sky exploded. They all turned as the base collapsed in on itself, a molten star imploding into silence. What had been Outpost Uran 6 was now a cloud of glowing particles, vanishing into the void. One of the soldiers turned to her. You sure you're okay? Leora didn't answer right away. She was staring out the viewport, watching the silence spread. Then she exhaled. Yeah, she said. Now I am. The pilot came over the comm. Council wants a debrief. They don't understand how a cadet took a fortified node alone. Tell them to read my report. They want to see you. Then they can wait until I shower and sleep 6 years. You think they're gonna let you walk after this? She chuckled, low and hoarse. No. I think they're going to give me command. The pilot went quiet. Someone in the back swore. Leora leaned her head against the bulkhead. They think humans are unpredictable, she said to no one in particular. They think we act on emotion. That we lack logic. That we're noise in a universe of order. One of the soldiers looked back. They're not wrong. She nodded. No, they're not. A long silence passed before she added. That's what makes us dangerous. The ship banked hard, entering FTL prep. Council ships began to converge, no doubt ready to surround her, question her, contain her story before it infected the rest of the academy. But it was too late for that. The swarm had learned her name. And worse, they hadn't learned how to forget it. She leaned back, closed her eyes, and whispered under her breath. Next time, don't send a message. Send a war. No one replied. But across the stars, the ripple had already begun. The council chamber smelled of sterilized arrogance. Leora Wynne stood alone on the black dais, wrists bandaged, uniform scorched, eyes sharp. Before her, tiered in gold and glass, floated representatives from 17 species, each with a voice and a vote, none with a clue what had just happened beyond their polished reports. A holographic display above her head played fragments of Outpost Uran SIX's destruction, swarm signatures blinking out, reactor spikes, her final transmission, grainy, blood-slicked, steady. This council recognizes Cadet Leora Wynne, intoned a voice. It belonged to High Strategist Morivek, a Talvirian known for his meticulous hatred of disorder. Before this chamber reviews your actions, do you wish to make a statement? Leora stared up at them, then shrugged. I lived. They didn't. Murmurs broke out, translated in 7 languages across the upper tiers. The elder of Enthel clicked his mandibles twice, signifying displeasure. Rivek narrowed his gaze. Your tone is noted. But what the council requires is clarity. You ignored direct surrender orders. You engaged a Tier 5 swarm base alone. You executed unauthorized neural warfare and detonated a core facility without approval. Do you deny any of this? No. Then explain. She raised her head. Explain why I ignored a death order? Why I didn't kneel and wait to be rewritten from the inside out? Or why I used what I had, rage, instinct, and someone else's bones, to turn a massacre into a win? More murmurs. A few leaned forward. I followed doctrine, she said. Just not yours. The one they don't write down because it scares you. Rivek's voice turned cold. And what doctrine is that? She smiled without humor. Win. A pause followed. Heavy. The kind that doesn't settle, just coils. The swarm, she continued, isn't beaten by treaties. It's not outhought. It's not negotiated with. It's cracked. With noise. With unpredictability. With fire and blood and the kind of logic that comes from knowing you've got 30 seconds and a knife. You were lucky, said a diplomat from the Creo race. One misstep and... I didn't misstep, she interrupted. They did. They tried to assimilate something they didn't understand. And it broke their machine. You mean you? Rivek said dryly. No, she said. I mean humanity. The room hushed. She walked forward, steps echoing. No one stopped her. She pointed to the holodisplay, where her blood-smeared face looked back, flickering in holographic fire. They didn't fear our weapons. They feared our thinking. We don't act from protocols or equations. We act because we decide. Because we're messy. Illogical. Brutal. And we never make the same mistake twice. You want to control that? Good luck. Silence. Rivek's voice was too calm. And what would you propose we do with you now, Cadet Wynne? Promote you? Make an example? No, she said. Make me a weapon. He blinked. Elaborate. Send me where the rules don't work. Where doctrine fails. Where the enemy doesn't see us coming because they still think we're trying to be like them. Don't bury what I did. Multiply it. Rivek tilted his head. You want authorization to become, what? Rogue? I want command of a unit, she said. Built for chaos. For creative warfare. For turning everything the enemy's programmed to expect into a fatal mistake. You won't win this war in simulations. You'll win it in the dirt. In the crawl spaces. In the screams between commands. You propose we weaponized unpredictability. She nodded. Yes. And you already started when you let a human in the room. No one moved. Even the diplomats stopped translating. A full minute passed. Then the elder eventually emitted 2 low clicks, approval. Then another. And another. Across the tiers, species one by one gave their signal. Rivek exhaled. Very well. Cadet Win, your request is granted. You will form and lead a special division, designation to be determined. You will operate under conditional autonomy, with direct council oversight. She smirked. You can oversee all you want. Just don't expect clean reports. Rivek sighed. Dismissed. She turned and walked out, boots echoing, the path ahead already forming in her mind. They didn't understand what they'd agreed to. Not fully. But they would. In the hall, a young aide followed her, clipboard in hand. Cadet Win? She paused. Not a cadet anymore. Oh. Right. Sorry. The council requires a designation for your division. Something they can classify. She thought for a moment, then tapped the clipboard. Call it fault line. The aide frowned. Why that? Because when it hits, she said, everything breaks. Later, as her new ship burned toward the next battlefield, she stared out the viewport. The stars looked quieter now. Not peaceful, just waiting. She whispered into the void, not for anyone to hear, but because it mattered. Tell the swarm I'm coming. She smiled. And this time, I brought friends.